Hi listeners, are you sick of underperforming, the lack of penetration? Are we stiff enough at the back? And why can we never last the full 90? Well, United our listeners, these are problems of the past thanks to our new sponsors, Blue Chew. Visit bluechew.com, that's blue, like the colour blue. Blue Chew brings you the same FDA approved active ingredients as Viagra, but now chewable. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. And since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready to poke it home inside the 6-yard box whenever the opportunity arises. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit bluechew.com and get your first shipment absolutely free when using our special promo code UNITED. You just need to pay the $5 shipping fee. Thank you, listeners. And thank you, Blue Chew, new sponsor of United R.
The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. It's a Sheringham. And Solskjaer has done it. Radisson saved it. United again. Renee! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host this week, Nick.
I'm Colm.
And I'm Raess.
Yeah, we're recording just a few hours after a crazy match against Sheffield United. I'm still trying to work out what I think about all that, but I think this kind of game just encapsulates our whole season so far of just like a whole roller coaster of up and down. And yeah, you could even say kind of encapsulates the last few years where you kind of start with hope, it goes away, get that hope, comes back again, and then fizzles out again. But I know we have our little WhatsApp group going there, and I think, Colm, at half-time you were already pushing yourself in the Ole Out group, right? Where are you at full-time now?
I've just been teetering on the brink. I think the last few podcasts I've sort of said, look, I don't think Ole is the guy. I don't think he's a very good manager, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a pretty good bulk of evidence now to suggest that is the case. Certainly at a top club like Manchester United, in the pressurised and difficult situation that we're in, I think it's an immense job, and it's not a shame. It's not we're only disappointed and sad, but I think it's pretty evident now that he's I just don't see it working out. And I felt that for a long time, and I still feel that, and I'm more convinced of that with every passing game and every passing minute. But that's not to say that he needs to go, because I just think it's a tough ask to ask anyone to come in there and do well. To be quite honest, at the moment, and I think there's a good argument that it would be quite unfair on the next manager to come into this season. I think summer is definitely a better time. So I suppose it becomes an argument of whether you'd want a caretaker in for a little bit of a bounce or something different, and whether Ole's impacts and performances are getting to the untenable point, which for me, I think they probably are. But I do think we'll hold fire till the summer, and then that's fine. But it's not going to make for great watching, I don't think.
Last week, Raess, you were already predicting that we were going to lose this game 2-0, right?
Yep.
And you took some flack for that, but yeah, maybe at half time.
Sheffield United really let you down there, Raess. They were
massively let me down because
they were good for it with about 20 minutes to go.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I will say that even when I'm not expecting to be well, I never would give that kind of prediction. But yeah, if it's your honest prediction, fair enough. But yeah, I was very worried as soon as I heard on Friday that McTominay was definitely out. Because then looking at a midfield of being led by Fred, and we had some discussion on who is it going to be. Is he going to give Garner a debut? I didn't really expect him to in this kind of game. And what I thought would happen did happen. That it would be either Pereira or Lingard pushed into midfield. But not something that fills you with confidence at all. And, not that surprised maybe how some of it went. But like I say, Raess, even before you heard that, you knew Sheffield United were going to be giving us a difficult game. So guess what? At half-time, you weren't that surprised in how it had gone.
No, I mean, the reason why I thought Sheffield would win, and to be honest, they should have won, was tactically it was just a bad matchup for United. I just thought the intensity, the way that Sheffield play, they press, the defence is very compact, and our attack works best when it's got spaces to run into, as we saw in the second half. But in the first half, Sheffield were restricting a lot of the space that Rashford and Martial would normally work with. James looked completely off the pace as well because there was nowhere for him to run into.
Yeah, I thought it was like the worst, I was going to say game, but first half at least that he's had for us. But yeah, in general, they were all struggling, all three of the front players. But a lot of that, I think, does go back to the midfield.
With the midfield, I think it's harsh to criticise Ole for that because I wouldn't put Garner in there because it's a hostile environment away from home. Throwing a young lad in there, and a kid who hasn't overly impressed in his debut, to throw him into an atmosphere like that is a bit of a tough ask. I don't think many managers would do that. I just think Andres Pereira is absolutely shocking, but I don't criticise Ole for the decision to play him. I think that rests on the player. He's been given a massive opportunity there to stamp his authority on securing a first team role in that midfield, and he exposed how limited he is at the highest level, I think.
I would have started Garner, but I didn't expect it to happen. And I think I can understand that, to put such a young lad in that kind of environment and that kind of thing was always going to be a big ask. But the one thing is that Jimmy Garner is a centre midfielder. He actually is a number 8 or number 6, whatever you want to call him, but he actually is a centre midfielder. That's where he's played. That's where he does play. Knows the position, knows what to do. And when he has played for us, he's looked extremely tidy, extremely capable of taking the ball and moving it around. Whether you can start him in a big game like that, yes, okay, maybe not. What Andres Pereira is not, and this has been proven time and time again, is a centre midfielder, 6 and 8. He played there at the start of the season or start of last season under Ole. Slipped balls through for attackers for a few times and then was taken out of the squad for 8-9 weeks, I remember, just completely frozen out after that because he wasn't reliable in that sense. So much so that Ole actually came out and said himself, Pereira just doesn't have that calmness to play there. He essentially said it was a quote, something about those lines of him just not being relaxed enough, not being confident enough, and not having the sort of presence of mind to play there, too frenetic and too likely to give the ball away. And then, lo and behold, he plays there today, and what happens? Loses the ball, they score. Exact same carbon copy of everything we've seen from Pereira playing in that position. And not only that, but it comes on the back of Pereira having arguably his best spell at United. I know he's been a wee bit up and down, but particularly against Brighton, he had an extremely strong sort of 70 minutes or 60 minutes after the first sort of 15, after he got the goal, basically. And just at the point we were thinking, actually, that was a good job. There was a lot of positives there that you could take from that, and he has had successes playing at number 10 where he can get out and press. Then we decide, oh no, we're going away to big bad Sheffield United and we don't have midfield superstar Scott McTominay. So what we'll have to do is completely rip up this formation that we've been really stringently sticking to, 4-2-3-1, and react to them because they're the better team. This team full of championship players, some League One players who have been there, not one single real player of note, that we're now accommodating our entire vision for, Ole's entire structure, that he's stuck to rigorously, except in big games, to say, oh, well, we're going to play a completely different way with completely different formations. So I agree with you in terms of not being able to criticise the midfield choice of Pereira versus Garner. Yeah, fair enough, that choice is a difficult choice. But why did we play Phil Jones as centre-back in a back three and then just leave Pereira and Fred absolutely stranded with a disjointed attack in midfield? To me, these are all really poor decisions that just come straight back to Ole. I don't think there's anyone else who can fit the bill for that.
Yeah, but the question is, if McTominay had been fit, would he have changed the formation? I think probably not. He's changed it because he sees that probably Fred and Pereira might be a bit weak, but he thinks maybe in a central kind of area he needs more defensive cover. Look, I mean, in hindsight, obviously it's looked pretty bad. But yeah, Pereira's had an absolute awful game. I mean, I was just looking at his stats. 66% passing accuracy for somebody in midfield. It's like the worst I've seen in several years for somebody playing in that position. Even when you're playing in attacking roles, like to see that low is pretty bad, and you might accept it off, a very attacking winger or something. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who's playing in central midfield, to have bigger giving the ball away that many times is just unforgivable. I do agree with you that he was looking like he was slightly growing into that number 10 role. I mean, he hadn't been amazing, but kind of doing the hard work pressing wise, still maybe lacking that bit on the goals and kind of assists that you'd really like to see from a number 10. But yeah, he was playing better. But yeah, today, for me, most of the blame of how awful we were in the first half basically goes right on him. And then that leads to the whole thing about, that we've got a weak squad. We've said many times that midfield up front, as soon as we've got a couple of kind of injuries in those same areas, then all of a sudden the whole team falls apart. So yeah, pre-match I was worried about that midfield, and yeah, and definitely the area where it's caused all of our problems.
I really don't think that's true, to be honest. Like, they were awful, but we were awful across the board. I don't think it was Andreas Pereira is not the reason why we were so abject in the first 70 minutes. He's a part of it, of course, but like, you could name any player. Brandon Williams was awful until he got the goal, absolutely awful. Phil Jones, I mean, directly gave away the first goal and was tragic apart from that. Maguire did a lot of shouting and nothing else. Lindelof was awful. Wan-Bissaka, literally nothing of note. Fred, I thought was the only player who came out with kind of any credit in those first 70 minutes, because he was at least still kind of trying to do the right things. And the front three were just, I mean, Martial wasn't interested, Rashford was isolated, and James was just completely dominated by his opposition. So I don't think, Pereira was really bad, but that was not like an isolated thing where it was just Andreas Pereira letting everyone else down, because it was across the board.
No, but I think that, like, because he's in that vital position, that for me, that is the main reason that we were that bad. And like, he's playing central midfield. That if you fail in that area of the pitch, then it affects the whole rest of the team. So for me, like, all right, I'm not saying it's all on him and everybody else was okay, because you're right, there was lots of poor performances, and yeah, until Williams scored that goal, I was like saying, maybe he should even be subbed, because yeah, he was struggling a lot on that side of the pitch. And yeah, look, all round, I agree with you. Jones and Maguire were struggling with that. Mousse, who was really like pushing around, bullying. He reminded me of the kind of way that Jamie Vardy plays, where he's just constantly harrying, pushing every bloody ball, and they weren't really dealing with him at all. Although that first goal for me, it's a foul. It's a foul, isn't it? What do you guys think? For me, that's a foul on Phil Jones, and I don't understand what VAR is doing if it doesn't give a foul for that.
Norwood going long, looking for Mousse to give Jones nightmares again, and he has. He's bundled him out of the way, Lys Mousse, and Lundstrom is denied. Fleck isn't. John Fleck follows up, and Sheffield United get their lead. But that owes so much to the determination of Mousse to see off Jones in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think it's a foul.
You don't?
No.
But what, you think it's shoulder to shoulder, or what do you think?
It's shoulder to shoulder, because if you watch the contact, they're both side by side when he does it. If he pushes into the back of the arm of Phil Jones, then yeah, you could say it's a shoulder barge from behind. But yeah, Mousse got himself into a position where he was side by side with Phil Jones when he made the contact. So for me, that's fair game. Like, the ball's there to be won in that situation.
I thought it was a foul, although I think it's slightly more from behind than shoulder to shoulder. And I think with the pace that Mousse is coming in at, I think it's too much contact, to still be a fair shoulder to shoulder. And also, I think the fact that Jones is on one leg and playing the ball impacts it as well, because you can't just shoulder someone. It's okay when both players are going shoulder to shoulder, but just shouldering someone when they have one leg on the ground and are playing the ball is a different thing to two players going for the ball, at an equal pace and shoulder to shoulder, if that makes sense. But what I do think is that Phil Jones creates that situation by himself, because he has a chance to play it to De Gea if that's what he wants to do. He has a chance to put out Rosette, or alternatively what he can do is just cover the area that Mousse is coming in from, if you know what I mean, and put his body across the ball. But he opens up actually as if to play it inside to De Gea, which is the angle that Mousse is coming in from. So I can see why it wasn't given, because of the poor kind of play from Jones. And equally, I think after the fact, he kind of dramatises it a wee bit, which I think always makes refs less inclined to sort of help you out in that one. But I think before that, there was two ones where Mousse ran in and Jones and Maguire kind of sandwiched him a little bit, and then another one with just Jones, and both times fouls were given. And I think those two were actually both less of a foul than the one that wasn't given that ended up leading to the goal. So frustrating personally to find that kind of inconsistency in the refereeing, and obviously with the VAR and all that kind of stuff, we just see that so much, and I thought that was the same there today. But do you know what? It was all Jones's fault. It's a problem of his own making. So to sit and yap that it was a foul to me is just, it doesn't, yes, I think when they looked at it on VAR, they should have said that's a foul and we can't give the goal. But at the same time, it's all Jones's fault. It's his own daft.
Yeah, he should do better than that. Whatever
that have caused the situation. And like that's another thing. I'm gonna be pretty harsh here throughout. I feel on Ole, because I'm just getting angry even remembering it. But to pick Phil Jones, I mean, maybe Tuanzebe isn't 100% fit, but Jones hasn't played in like 10 weeks, and to throw him in at a back three, which he hardly ever plays in, on the left side of a back three, which doesn't suit him either. And just think that that's going to be anything other than an absolute disaster, as it always is when someone names Phil Jones on a team sheet, to me, mystifying again. Extremely poor selection.
It was a difficult situation. And for me, it all goes back to having lack of numbers and him trying to come out with a solution for what was going to be a difficult game for sure. Sheffield United riding high. But yeah, I can see what people are saying. There's a lot of talk saying, look, they're Championship players, League One players. But yeah, I think it does do them quite a disservice of a team that have been performing very well. And that is actually a difference that people talk about. Oh yeah, these are players that come from League One. But that is the thing. They're players who've been playing together in a certain system for like a couple of years. And yeah, way overperforming maybe what their level should be. And in fact, Oliver Norwood is one of our old youth players who I think was trained with their first team a few times, like maybe 10 years ago, but never even got a sub appearance for us.
It's a funny line of argument because there's a real hypocrisy there, I think, amongst United fans, in that we want to say, well, they're not just Championship players and League One players. They're a fantastic unit that's tactically really well drilled, and they've played together, and there's great coaching there. And then we say, but Ole is a rubbish manager and is tactically inept, and they say, oh no. It's the players. The players let him down. The players aren't, the injuries, he can't pick the players he wants, blah, 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 blah. But the very simple matter of fact is you have one well-coached team, you have one poor-coached team. The poorly coached team is talent-wise, light years ahead of the other one. Light years, of course. There's not a player, I think, in their squad that on pure footballing ability and sort of, I guess, reputation gets into our squad, and yet there's such a stark contrast in how both teams are performing. In the first half, they were like taking the piss out of us, essentially. The triangles they were playing, the way they were knocking it around, zipping it across the turf and putting us in awful ppositions, just absolutely schooling us, really. And that's just so stark. And I think that's where this game particularly highlights kind of the big issue that Ole's had and will continue to have over the last year and moving forward, and that there just isn't good. There's not good coaching, not good selections. I don't think good motivation. I don't think he's getting the most out of the players in any way, shape or form, and tactically lacking, I think.
Yeah, look, I don't totally agree with you. There's obviously issues there, but every time, there is still, comes back to me for the squad, all right? That earlier in the season when we were performing badly, we were very down to bare bones up front, and you're playing people like, Gomez, Chong, who now we actually haven't seen much of at all. The moment it could have been Garner, but yeah, he's thrown in Pereira, who's had an absolute stinker.
And completely changed the formation and brought in a centre-back that hasn't played in 10 weeks.
Yeah, but
it's not just that he chose Pereira.
The only question for me is has he done that because he's done it just out of tactically, and if McTominay was fit, would he have done it, or has he just done it to try and compensate for that?
But that's you could excuse anything by saying, but what if he's just done that because? But ultimately, the proof is in the pudding, and the decision was the wrong one. So yes, I understand he did it. I understand he did it because he thought this would work, but it didn't work. And there's probably evidence to suggest that sticking with 4-2-3-1, as was so much better in the second half, was the way that we should have started that match, and he made the wrong decision, thinking that our injuries were more important than playing the formation that we've been playing all year. So that was the decision he made. He said, we have bad injuries in key areas, so I'm going to completely change the formation, take a player from a position where he's doing well to a position where historically he's done extremely poorly, and bring in a player who hasn't played in 10 weeks who historically has been pretty awful and error prone. These are the two decisions I'm going to make to counter the admittedly bad injuries that I have, instead of just putting a centre midfielder in Jimmy Garner into a position that, okay, it's a difficult game, but into a position that he knows, and in a formation where every other player knows what their job is because we've played that formation all year, and that's just a bad decision.
No, but I don't know. Yeah, I do think on the formation that you have a point, but I don't agree with you that it's just so easy to throw in Garner, because you end up with a midfield of Fred and Garner.
Yeah,
that could have been even worse than what we had today, I think. I don't know. Yeah, like I say, you don't know.
He could have played Pereira in a 4-2-3-1 at centre midfield, or he could have played Lingard. He could have played Lingard 10 and Pereira at centre midfield, and it could have been the same outcome, absolutely. And then we might have changed to 5 at the back in the second half, and the game would have played out in the exact same way, but in an opposite fashion.
And there is a lot of our fans who've been saying, look, we've looked best with this 3 at the back, and there's been a lot of people calling for us to move to that. There's been several calls from people saying that these are the best performances we've had. And yeah, he has kind of gone for that in bigger away games and things like that. So yeah, maybe he saw this at that kind of situation as well.
Before we used 3-5-2, which was different to 3-4-3, which is what this was.
Exactly. Yeah.
And 3-5-2.
This was completely new.
3-5-2, you've got Martial and Rashford up top together as a duo, playing off each other. It's dynamic. It's they're never isolated because they'll always have one another close to each other. And you've always got 3 men in midfield. So you've got that ability to at least participate in the midfield battle. Today was completely different because you had 3 men up top, each one in their own particular third of the pitch if we're doing it vertically, and they were just isolated from each other. And then you've got just 2 men in midfield who weren't able to dictate that play as a duo. So for me, it was a completely new formation what he threw out today. So, a very risky thing to do. 3-5-2 could still be a viable formation going forward. So I wouldn't rule that out based on today's game, because 3-4-3 is very different to 3-5-2.
And he didn't have the midfielders to play 3-5-2 today. You would always lack, unless he wanted to play Pereira, Fred, and then Lingard, or something like that. And it may have worked better, but again, the 3-4-3 was completely new.
Yeah, Maguire was pushing out a fair bit. I was looking as well at like the average formation charts, and Maguire is almost in the same average position as Fred and Pereira in this game. It's only slightly behind them, so I don't know if it's something that's been done tactically or it's just because I think actually it came down a bit to when Sheffield United went 2 up, they started sitting and Maguire had a lot more chance to come out with the ball. Again, it's changed, like you say, because we changed at half-time, it's difficult to analyse the position over the match because Jones obviously comes out, Lingard comes in. I mean, yeah, what do you think about these substitutions? Ole's game management is something that's been called into question a lot, and as well, I've had issues with him taking way too long to make changes when things aren't going the right way. Today's made the change at half time.
He makes the right changes then, gets us into the game, and then he messes it all up right at the end with the Martial coming off. So his in-game management again it's poor, because, like, to be fair, you're 2-0 down, so any manager at that stage, even the most conservative, would be forced to make changes. So I don't think he deserves overly a lot of credit in that regard. But then when we're winning the game, and that's, it's the pressure situation, and that's when you need to showcase how well you can read the game in that very tight, pressured situation. And he goes for the most prehistoric way of thinking, which is, okay, I'll take my striker off and I'll shut up shop. I mean, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God, that's it. Sheffield are getting back in this. You got to realise we benefited massively by Muse going off, because as soon as he went off, they couldn't pressurise our centre-backs as much, and they took too long bringing Callum Robinson on. So that massively played into our favour, because then we could just go all out attack, basically, knowing they couldn't really hurt us on the counter.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was all correct. The halftime move with Jones was correct. The Greenwood on for Pereira, was it? Was correct as well. Absolutely correct, and those paid dividends. So I agree with Reece. A small amount of credit due there, because I think they were obvious changes. I think they were almost unavoidable. Like, Jones had to go. Obviously, the 5 was absolutely not working. I mean, in commentary at about the 30 or 40th minute, they were asking why it hadn't already been changed, because it was just so apparent. And then the Martial sub just says we don't want to play anymore. We had completely, destroyed Sheffield United at that stage. I mean, they were I thought they looked so tired. I thought they looked so shell-shocked. They didn't expect it to happen. Before this game, they hadn't conceded in the last 15 minutes of any Premier League game. The only Premier League club currently that had done that. And then they shipped 3 goals, which is just, they were just broken. Essentially, we had completely dominated them in such a short window, those 10 minutes, where we just suddenly clicked and turned up. And some of the football and some of the goals were absolutely brilliant. And it was so, as a fan, you love that. I was watching it with a Norwegian friend, and we were just going mad at that stage, because it had been such a, it's like the Rocky story of just getting beaten for like 9 rounds. It was that kind of game where it was so, oh, look at what Sheffield United are doing to Manchester United here. It's not even, it's not even a close game. We're just getting dominated in every facet of the game, and then suddenly bang, 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 and we're just absolutely shredding through them. And it looked like we could get more, and I particularly wanted us to get more, because Martial was in my fantasy football team and hadn't really done much yet. So I was like, come on, how has he not assisted or scored? I was like, everyone's getting in the act here. Brandon Williams pinging them in bottom corner, and Martial can't do anything. So I was like, nah, keep him on. We can get a 4th here. And at that stage, Sheffield United were just like, open the gates, walk through us, we're done. This has not gone the way we thought it was going to go. And just take what you want. And as soon as you make that sub from Martial, it just says, it just takes all that impotence and just hands it back to them. It just says, we don't want to score any more goals. That's it. We're scared. Oh God, we suddenly have something to protect. We didn't actually think we were ever going to be in this position, because historically we just don't do that anymore, you know. And
it was interesting because after that third goal, there was a big discussion on the sideline. Did you see? There was the whole Ole, Carrick, McKenna. They were all there, very deep in discussion after. So it was obviously like a kind of team decision that they'd come up with in those few minutes after that goal to make this change. Because I saw all together they were trying to decide what to do, and I don't know. You know, we talk about how they're supposed to be a management team, but at the end, Ole does have to take the responsibility for these decisions.
Yeah, of course. But you just had to ride the wave. You know, you just had to have some balls and say no. Look, and also I just think
it's the kind of sub that Mourinho did time and time again as well, and got a lot of flack for.
Course.
And there were so many times that it was Fellaini coming on, and then we conceded late. And I can remember this happening. Like I think even under maybe Van Gaal, we had these kind of ones as well.
But I just think even if you want to bring Martial off in that stage, if he's tired, if he's just not been great, you have to bring on like for like.
Well, he hadn't had a good game, to be fair.
No, he hadn't had a good game, so he was that. I think that played into it. I think his lack of involvement and his kind of a little bit of that stroppiness that we associate with him plays into that. And I appreciate we didn't really have the bench, but you have to bring on like for like. You have to bring on a Mata or someone who can. You can't just take a striker off and throw on another defender. It has to be like for like. Because defending starts from the front, and it's a psychological thing as well. It's about saying
I actually couldn't work out myself. Was Tuanzebe put into midfield or was he put at the back?
Midfield.
I think he was basically just told go on and sit there, you know.
Yeah, I thought he was put into midfield, right? But it wasn't that clear because he wasn't on long enough to really analyse it.
But then he found himself sort of out wide right most of once we then conceded and got the ball back, if you know what I mean. So it's just...
Yeah, it's a complete mess. I think, look, you've got to realise in modern day football, that tactic just doesn't work anymore. Defenders are just not good enough to hold on to leads anymore. So you'll see teams like Pep's teams or Klopp's teams, they don't really shut up shop that often. They'll do it sometimes, but they'll often just keep that team structure that they've already got, because if a team's coming onto you, you're going to have space to work with. Then with that space, you can mount an attack. And by the time you've mounted an attack, you've killed off precious time for the other team. They've got to then try and win the ball back off you. So it's constantly just the killing of time by the time they've then able to mount an attack back at you. Whereas the old school mentality was, we don't want the ball, we'll just keep our shape, we'll hold on to the lead. And that's the reason why Mourinho ultimately lost his job. And even in the recent Spurs game against West Ham, they were 3-0 up.
Yeah.
And they let West Ham get back into the game because his team became more and more negative. And that's something that will play out at Spurs. You'll see. I mean, they'll have a bounce, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later. But this tactic just doesn't work in modern day football. English managers in international tournaments have done that a lot, and it's hurt the team. So it's a mindset which completely is not compatible with modern day football anymore.
Yeah, interesting, because like you say, it's still a pretty regularly used tactic, and I wouldn't even say it's an English thing. I mean, for me, I actually link that kind of thing more to like Italian football or something, like, one up and kind of like close the game out, Catenaccio style or something.
But they had the defenders to do it.
Yeah,
you see,
and the midfield. A big part of that's about keeping the ball, whereas that's not the way we do it.
And you notice with Italian teams that when they used to do Catenaccio, they're so skilled at bringing that ball out of defence and back into a counter-attack situation. So let's just say the Italian team at the 2006 World Cup or whatever, they were a team who, even when they had to defend for their lives, they'd still find a way of playing their football and getting the ball to score the goals that they needed to do or whatever. But this United team are not anywhere near as good as that defensively, nor are they that skilled in transitioning the ball from back to front in very pressured situations. They need to be a team that's on the front foot and let the boys just play their football. That's when they're at their best.
I also think it's a tactic that relies heavy on personality, in terms of the composure and the character of key players. And I actually think if the shoe was on the other foot and Sheffield United wanted to do that, they probably would have been able to do it very successfully, because they're a team that's very used to bringing 10 men behind the ball,
Completely
low blocks,
agree.
and when they go to teams like City or Liverpool and kind of thriving off their closing down and really making it a badge of honour, how quickly they can get out to people, how they can shut spaces down. Wolves, in very recent history, have made a very, very good habit of doing it to us extremely successfully, to the point where we look like we're never going to score, and that pressure doesn't even begin to build because they're so confident in those defensive drills, essentially, because that's how they play most of their games. We don't clearly work on that, it's not, and that's fine because it's not somewhere as a club I don't think we should really be. I think Mourinho tried to sort of move us that way, but ultimately we were never going to be that because we don't have the players for it, we don't have the personality for it, and as a club, it's not part of the DNA, so I just think it's something that's completely at odds. And that's not to say Fergie never did it, there's not a time and a place and all that kind of stuff. But again, in this instance, in this game, the only thing I think you can say, and I appreciate the hindsight 2020 thing, you could bring Tuanzebe on, he makes 3 monster challenges and we win the game 3-2 and everyone's laughing and joking. But, I think now in the cold light of day, we can just say, look, bad decision again.
Look, if you had Vidic, Rio and Carrick, we saw in the 2009 season, we weren't playing great football, but we were grinding out results. But that central core is really strong. So you can do that. It's exactly what you said, Colm. You look at the personnel that you have and can they carry out what you're expecting them to do? And I'm sorry, but you're looking at guys like Lindelof, Maguire, Fred. These are not players who are going to hold out 10 minutes in a very secure defensive formation and eke out a result. For me, it's brain dead thinking.
Yeah, and then it comes back again, like I say, to lack of depth in the midfield area for sure in the squad. I mean, we're missing obviously McTominay. Even Matic, who's been awful, would be somebody who's going to help out in these kind of situations. I don't know where he's at. A lot of people talking about him leaving in January. We'll see about that. But yeah, this is.
We can't afford for him to leave. And I'm sure everyone desperately wants him to go. I could not get him out of the club quick enough personally. And I agree. I am happy with all the players we've gotten rid of. And I know people, particularly this weekend, are looking at Smalling versus Jones and all that kind of stuff. And, he's grabbing a clean sheet, a goal and 2 assists, whereas Phil Jones is giving someone else a goal and getting subbed off at half time, And of course, look, it's a horrible comparison. Smalling, it was right for him to go. It was right by everyone. He's probably the last defender we actually wanted to go. But at a certain point, it's who you can actually get rid of also matters. If no one wants Rojo, no one wants Jones, then I don't know why you give them contracts until 2023. But certainly I can understand why we let Smalling go. Ultimately, the conversation was, look, you're probably not going to play as many minutes because Lindelof, Maguire, first choice, Tuanzebe is behind them, and then it's you. And Smalling says, well, I still think I'm an extremely good professional. I'm going to go try something new. Great, shake hands, happy, and I'm buzzing for him that he's doing so well. I think it's fantastic. It shouldn't be used as a stick to beat us with, I don't think, because of how bad the people behind him are.
And I totally agree with you, Colm. You see people use this as a criticism all the time, saying, why have they chosen to get rid of Smalling over Jones? But like you say, nobody probably came in for Jones, whereas somebody actually wanted exactly, Smalling. Yeah. And we had too many centre-backs, one had to go, and that's who somebody's come in for. So that comes down to that, really. But you're right, we can't be letting even somebody like Matic go because we just don't have the depth in midfield at all, even if...
I mean, I still think we should, because I think now it's not even about this season. I think with the best one in the world, I think it's a write-off. I think it's about summer. I think it's about January in terms of buying. And I think the more players we get rid of, the more players we get in, hopefully.
Look, the whole season's not a write-off yet, right? We're still in the Europa League. There's still, so you can't just say, look, just write the whole season off.
In the sense that, the games have to be played, but the squad is so far away from being anywhere near ready. And I'm not even talking about, yes, okay, we could win the Europa, we could win the League Cup, we'll climb up to 5th or 6th or maybe 4th in some dream world. But it's more about where I have written it off, Nick, to be quite honest with you, because I'm looking at us. I want to see us next year already, because I just think we're missing so many players. We have players who clearly don't want to be here, Pogba, etc.
I wouldn't say that's clear. I wouldn't say it's clear that Pogba doesn't want to be here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I know you had this conversation last week a lot, and that was the one bit that I didn't agree with. Because at the moment he's just been injured for ages, and people are making out all sorts of things.
You want to go in the summer? You want to go in the summer, Nick? What's changed? What of our inspiring football this season has convinced him to stay? Because he wanted to go in the summer. He said in the summer, I want to leave. That's what he said.
I can't believe Nick said that, to be honest.
I can't. He literally said in the summer, Nick, I want to go, and you think an ankle injury and our sensational form this season has convinced him of anything other than that?
It's one thing saying that he's not going to leave this January, Nick, but to say he's not going to leave at all, even in the summer, that's a bold
No,
statement.
I didn't say he's not going to leave in the summer. I just said that I don't really agree with the thing that says as if his head's not here and he's already ready to play elsewhere. I mean, he's been injured. Like, I think he'd still be like a big player to come back for us. Like, but you're almost writing him off as if, oh, he's somebody we shouldn't be relying on anymore. We should start thinking about life without Pogba.
My thing is, of course, he has to come back into the team and play because he's a brilliant footballer, but he should not be part of our plans for next year. We should not be not buying midfielders because Paul Pogba.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't disagree with that. And even if Pogba stayed, we still need somebody else who's creative because, as we see, as soon as he's injured, we're completely lacking. But yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I think probably the difference is that you're saying you're already writing off this season and thinking about next season. But for me, if we can get in a couple of players to fill in those gaps, one up front, one in midfield, in this like winter window, then yeah, I don't see why we can't have a go at winning, say, the Europa League, something like that, and that can still be a half decent season. So there's no way I'm writing off the whole season already.
Oh no, that's fine. I agree there. I mean, I also think that the first 11 is good enough to win the Europa. I do. I think you're looking at players like Wan-Bissaka, Maguire. If Pogba comes back into the team, if Rashford and Martial continue the form that they have shown, there's a team in there that can definitely do damage in Europa for sure.
Definitely, and it's only been at the point where, all right, up front when we lost, a couple of players, we were awful, obviously. When Martial came back, it changed. We've still been just getting through in midfield. Thankfully, Fred was playing better than he was, which is why. But yeah, we were all still hoping Pogba came back in. And we all knew that even in that team that's been playing a lot better generally in the last month or so, that Pereira was still the weak link in it and needed to be replaced. And yeah, we've talked about it already here that hopefully Pogba would have come back. And for me, and I think both of you, had both said that he hopefully gets a chance to come and take that number 10 position.
The point I want to make just on that, I'm not saying that there isn't still things to play for this year. Of course, obviously there is. There's loads of the season left and competitions which we can do well in. What I mean by that is more than any kind of silverware or more than Champions League football or more than any kind of outcome that you could describe for the season, the thing that I want to see most is a style of play and working towards that, essentially a formation and an ethos and a style of identifiable play that I can see us growing into. I can see players getting used to. I can see players flourishing in. And at the moment, we're a year in and I have still absolutely no idea what that is, and I don't see us moving or steering ourselves towards anything other than continued mediocrity. And that's my thing. So whilst yes, we can still do damage in the Europa League and all that kind of stuff, and obviously, there's a load of the season left, I'm just becoming increasingly confident. It's becoming increasingly clear to me that Ole is not the person to take us where I think we need to go, and is a placeholder at this stage. Absolutely a placeholder.
Yeah.
I do understand where you're coming from, Colm, but I do think there has been glimpses of what team he wants and what style he wants, but every time it gets close to getting something going in the right direction, it gets completely fucked by injuries. Basically, that's the way I see it.
I just think that's the squad he said he was happy with in the summer, and I just
no,
think
but it's not the squad
so many...
he said he's happy with in the summer, right? We know, we've been through this 100 times, that in the last few weeks of the transfer window, he's all of a sudden lost players that I'm sure at the start of the summer he's told, I don't want them and I don't need replacements. Then yeah, when players like Sanchez, Lukaku leave with literally days left of the transfer window, you don't think that's Ole's planning, do you?
But then, no, I don't think it is, but I think we just keep coming back to this summer window and this sort of player crisis, and he has the players he has. That the 15 players we had available today, or the 16 or however many's in a football team, 17, were they better than the Sheffield United players, man for man? Every day of the week. So I can't hack any more of these excuses.
No, but what do you mean? Were they better than the Sheffield United players every day? Like Sheffield United are top? I don't know what they are at the moment, 7th or something like that.
Because they're being well coached, Nick.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I don't understand what your point is.
So we can keep saying, but he doesn't have Pogba. But Martial was out. Even when you take those players out, it's still a squad that should be around 4th, 5th, 6th and playing well in the Premier League comfortably. But it's not. And why is that?
No, I think it would be a squad that was comfortably 4th if everybody was fit. But I don't think it's a squad that as soon as you take out 3 central midfielders is going to be coming 4th. No, I don't think it is.
Well, is it a squad that should be 11th, 10th, 9th and being resoundingly beaten by Bournemouth and Sheffield United, who have still thinner squads or worse squads than ours?
We didn't lose to Sheffield United today.
or drew with Sheffield United. I mean, we did in every aspect except the scoreline, I think. But yeah, okay, it was a draw.
No, yeah,
Great.
look, we should be better than 10th for sure.
I just think
but...
my thing is that it's starting to irritate me how much of Ole's sins are being totally absolved by United fans. And I get it. We all want him to do well. I'm so on board that, like you wouldn't believe. And if we put together a great run or win Europa or this, the football starts to get a lot better, I will happily chow down on these words. But I just think the objectivity has gone in it, that we're just throwing out these same excuses about players being injured, about the squad being thin, about the Glazers not backing them in the market.
No, but don't you see that we have played better when the squad's been close to full fitness? Is that not the truth?
Yeah, better players equals better football, great, but it's still the manager's job. You can't just absolve every manager of poor decisions and say, oh well, when they get these players, or when we buy back Ronaldo, or when we get Eden Hazard.
Look, I'm not totally absolving him, but I'm just trying to say it's a question about how much of it is down to injuries. That's what the question is, and like for me, a lot of it is down to injuries, and every time we've been close to a fully fit squad, we've actually been playing pretty well. That's the way I see it. And it's only when there's been 2 or 3 players who've gone in one specific area, like as I say, a few months ago it was the attack, and at the moment it's the midfield, where then we're struggling massively.
But I don't want a fair weather manager. Do you know what I mean? I don't want a manager who can only do it when it's going well, when he has his full squad to pick from, because that's not the reality of football. You couldn't name a season where we've had the full complement of our available players. You could barely name any season.
Between full, but it's like when you get 3 injuries in like the same position, most teams will struggle. All right, maybe Manchester City won't because they've got ridiculous depth all over there, but even they are having centre back problems after a couple of players are out. But yeah, for me, it's just when all these things are coming in one position that I do think that it is a valid excuse. Although, yeah, I know what you're saying as well.
I am humble enough to try to analyze, which was what I did, to try to analyze my career. The principle of the analyze was not to blame anyone else. And when I had meetings with my assistants and the people that I thought about bringing to work with me in this chapter, was always based on the principle there is nobody else to blame, there is nobody else to analyze, it's just only about us. I also have to learn, but the people that works with me, they have also to learn, is that sometimes you have to work with people that you don't love.
We're going to have to talk about, of course, the return of Jose Mourinho this week, because now there's a lot of talk about the fact that obviously Pochettino is now available. Jose's back in business. I know Reece, he's a big favourite of yours from days gone by, right?
Yep.
It was a bit of a crazy week. I don't know. I think I have mentioned before on the podcast that my brother is actually a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And, been getting this kind of reaction to it all. And he was just like, listen, for the first day, he was like, oh, I'm confused about this all because I didn't want Pochettino to go and I feel he's being hard done by, but also kind of slightly excited by Jose turning up because, he's a higher profile manager than we probably would have expected to have at our club. And, for Tottenham as a club and marketing, I guess it's a great kind of move. Already they're getting a lot of press but this is the kind of thing, you see, people talk about it being a circus, and when Jose's your manager, there's almost more interest in your press conferences than the actual matches. And I think that says a lot about his style of football as well, by the way, not just about his character. But yeah, like I say, the big question now is I've been a big fan myself of Pochettino. And, I've said on this podcast, even before we got Mourinho, that my number one choice even then was Pochettino. And I think, Colm, both me and you said even a few weeks ago, even though I'm still very supportive of Ole, that if an opportunity came up to get him, I would like to see him as our manager. I mean, the kind of perfect scenario for me now probably goes something like Ole continues a kind of rebuild this season, bows out gracefully in the summer, and Pochettino takes over. But yeah, these things don't tend to go that easily, do they?
No, they don't. Let me just start off by saying that Poch had to go. I think that was the right decision by Daniel Levy. I think that Spurs project had come to its natural conclusion. It was either sell all the players or get rid of the manager. And I think he had to leave. But that doesn't take away from what he's achieved at that club. He's done a magnificent job. He wasn't able to take him to that winning a trophy, but he's done as much as possible to get to that situation. And I think there's a great manager still in there. He's someone I see once he wins one trophy, then more trophies will follow him. And yeah, I think he's someone we should look to snap up if he's available, to be totally honest. As for Mourinho, he says he's now the humble one and that he's changed. For me, I don't think Aleppo changes his spots that easily. You're just watching the Spurs West Ham game. You still saw a double pivot. You still saw everyone else is defending. Just let the forwards kind of do what they want to do, type of thing. And the use of Eric Dyer as his most creative centre mid, for me, said it all. I think they'll have a natural bounce in terms of results, and he might be able to pick up a smaller trophy or two. But I don't know. I am yet to be convinced that Mourinho is the same Mourinho he once was, where he was at the cutting edge of tactical innovation and being able to produce sophisticated football. His teams have become more and more rudimentary as time has gone by. I don't think he will be as bad as he was at United. I mean, I've always been a long-term Jose fan, so I'm someone who would love to actually see him become how he once was. But I don't know. I'm still not fully convinced that he's ready for modern-day management.
Yeah, he has been interesting, some of the things he's been saying, but, at the same time, he made a lot of the right noises when he first came to Old Trafford. And, in the end, it just ended the same way that it has done before that. But yeah, I did see him in an interview, and he was alluding to saying that he's taken some time out to think about tactics and that he's got some kind of great new philosophy. But as you say, Reece, I didn't actually see this first game, but it sounds like it's been more of the same. But yeah, I mean, he needs more chance than just one match, I suppose. So yeah, it will be interesting to see where he goes with that. Yes, obviously we're only like a week or two away from Jose coming back to Old Trafford as well. It's a midweek Premier League game. Tottenham are coming, I think it's the Wednesday, the 4th of December. He'll be coming back there. And actually, yeah, the first manager in the Premier League era to be coming back to Old Trafford. Because, yeah, Moyes never came to Old Trafford. Obviously, Van Gaal not. So, yeah, it's the first time we're going to have somebody coming back there. I think he'll probably initially get a half-decent reaction, but then, yeah, it depends how the game goes. Sure, there'll be some kind of chance sit-down Mourinho or something like that I expect to ring round at some point. But yeah, look, the guy is box office. He is kind of good for football. I like watching him when he's not at my club, dragging everybody down. Then I don't mind. But it will be very interesting to see what kind of job he does at Spurs. And yeah, especially interested to see which players stay, who might leave. Even straight away, people like Eriksen apparently are up for grabs and is somebody we'd look for. So yeah, whether players now want to stay and play for Mourinho or are rushing for the door even quicker will work out in the next couple of windows, I suppose. Colm, so even though you've not actually said it, Colm, I basically, in my mind, you are Ole out.
Not in the sense that I'm like actively petitioning for it, I don't think, but obviously you couldn't. I mean, as a coach, as a manager, I don't think he has the experience. Certainly, I don't think he has shown me the tactical mind for it in any way, shape or form, and I don't think he has the personality and the gravitas for it. I think when you look at Klopp, when you look at Guardiola, when you look at even Mourinho, although it's a Jekyll and Hyde thing with him, when you look at Ferguson, even Wenger, who's a different kind of character than the rest in a much more reserved sense, they all had this kind of, and Pochettino I think has it as well, this gravitas and this kind of strength of character that I think really comes through in their teams, particularly Klopp, who's so, maniacal almost, and I think that is really seen in his football. I think teams reflect good managers, certainly, and I think Guardiola's the same, very analytical, very kind of like a flawed genius kind of character, and I think that comes through in the team as well. And Ole, I mean, he's like a wet fart. He's just like a rag, Even the post-match presser today, I just thought that's just nothing. Those are just nothing words, and he's basically just said, "Oh, well, you just can't control anything in football." It's basically what he said after the match. Oh, their fans were great, and that really got to us. Oh yeah, that's why that was so bad, was it? Cheers. So I think he'll always be lacking in that regard. But I do think he's a good football man. I think he obviously loves the club and he's made very shrewd signings, has a good direction of where he wants us to go. I just don't think he can actually take us there.
Yeah, I think you're kind of pushing towards that thing that has been mentioned for a few people saying, maybe Ole is the perfect director of football to be shaping the kind of culture of the club, what kind of players come in. And yeah, look, I don't totally disagree with you. I mean, I also, even though I'm very supportive of Ole and don't like a lot of the Ole out stuff. I don't think that he's up to like a Klopp or a Guardiola and that he's some like tactical genius or anything like that.
And that's a high standard. Obviously, I'm holding for him, but United need that personality at the moment because we are in a tough spot with a tough squad and just a bad moment as we have been in for the last 5 years. So I think I think it would benefit from someone who's kind of not bigger than the club in the sense that Mourinho always tried to be, but certainly at that level,
But one thing that also is worth mentioning, though, is that I do think, and I see some people, like especially like in the first half today, talking online saying, "Oh, they've downed tools," and I really hate that saying
I don't
in
think
general.
So. Yeah, I don't
because
think so.
First of all, like I think it's very rare that players actually actively stop playing. Like nobody wants to go on a football pitch and lose. Like even I'm just playing friendly with my mates on like a Saturday or something. And you still want to win the match. And I'm pretty sure that there's not many professional footballers out there that go out and like have no intention of actually like winning that game.
And I actually don't think the players ever would for someone like Ole. I think under Mourinho you could see a situation where it happened where the well became so poisoned because of his comments outside.
And even under Mourinho, I don't ever think that anybody active, but it might be that they're not giving that extra
it's more
10% or something.
I think at that stage
they're still going to go out there and try and do their best, but maybe they're not 100% going for it. They're not right in tune with this philosophy. Whereas at the moment, I really do feel that in the club, in the dressing room, that there is a good atmosphere, that people do believe in what's being done there, and to kind of break that up when I think that normally that is when managers go. It's when players start showing distrust in it.
I think if he got 3 or 4 more players in, that squad could go from looking abject to fantastic extremely quickly, even with Ole in charge. But I still think you learn a lot about people in difficult moments, and I'm not learning much about his managerial acumen. The one thing I will say is, look, if he was sacked next week, I wouldn't be that upset. To be quite honest with you, it wouldn't really. It would probably more excite me looking at who we're going to get and what's going to be next, rather than upset me for Ole. And I would be like upset for him personally because he's a lovely fella and a Man United legend. But no, I wouldn't I wouldn't be raging or disappointed or anything like that. But equally, if he stays, and I'm sure I actually think he will stay at the end of the season, I accept that. It's not a big drama for me. It's not a big issue, because I just think it's a massive undertaking and he's just not quite up to it. And that's not like a really damning indictment on him. But I just think he will not be the guy. And I just keep saying placeholder, and I don't think that's even necessarily a bad thing. I think the club maybe just needs that a little bit, to get to the summer.
Yeah, and I think I actually agree with that just somebody, to come back after we'd had bad things after Mourinho and everything, just to like clean things up, reboot the culture, and then
And that's fine. And I'll be behind him and behind the team the whole way. And in the next season, if he's still here and if he gets a summer window, then I'd say fair enough. And then if it's awful next season and at Christmas, I think then it truly becomes completely untenable. Assuming we go along as we are, we're still eking out, decent performances. And we didn't get beaten today, so we're still, 6 out of the last 7 unbeaten. So it's not all complete doom and gloom, but I still just don't see the vision or the end goal. I think it is just a placeholder thing now, and in that sense, I'm not willing to just absolve him of any guilt or any feeling just because we're kind of stuck with him a little bit, which I think is kind of the stance of some United fans at the moment. And again, I understand it. There's nothing wrong with it per se, and I would be delighted if he turns into a really quality manager who sets up a great team and we get back to where we want to be. But I mean, I just wouldn't put any money on that whatsoever. So I wouldn't say I'm Ole out. I'm just begrudgingly disappointed that he hasn't been that great and that we're not that great. But I sort of understand that you can't really do anything about that at the moment. We're just kind of in the situation we're in,
Yeah, look, this winter window will be pretty vital for us. I mean, there's already some noises being made about that. Yeah, you can't get the right players. Maybe you have to look at the loan market, etc., etc. But yeah, for me at the moment, just getting in any couple of like bodies just to fill in the very obvious gaps could make a huge difference, especially when you have a couple of injuries in those areas. So yeah, let's see where we'll probably talk a bit more about that in another month or so when we're getting towards that window opening. As we said, Tottenham is coming in a couple of weeks, but yeah, before that, we are off to Astana on Wednesday, where I see the temperature is something like -20 or something absolutely ridiculous at the moment. I'm assuming it's going to be a full second string going out there since we've already qualified. Yeah, good luck to you teenagers playing in minus 20 degrees in Kazakhstan. But yeah, there's a good chance for some other young lads to get some game time, and maybe some of these injured players actually, because I think Matic has been back in training. Obviously, Tuan Zebi just had a brief appearance. I think a couple of others are back in training, aren't they? I don't know how close people like Bailly and is Shaw in training.
Shaw's back in training, yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure these players are all going to get minutes basically, and they need them to try and get back to full fitness. Whether putting Luke Shaw out in minus 15 degrees in Kazakhstan is a good idea with his muscles and whatever, I don't know. But
are there any Gregs in Kazakhstan?
Feed up over there. But
it's Grigor, but yeah.
And then we've got Villa next weekend. At home, we've got 2 back-to-back home matches, Villa and then Spurs. I mean, Villa is another one of the promoted teams, not been doing okay-ish, not anywhere near as well as Sheffield United, obviously. What's your kind of expectations for this game? Which surely it goes down to must-win, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Obviously, being from Birmingham, watch Villa a lot. They're actually probably the most sophisticated side out of the 3 that have gone up. Results haven't quite gone their way, but if you look at the actual performances, they've been really good. They gave Liverpool an incredibly difficult time. They gave Man City an incredibly difficult time. So this is not an opponent that we should take for granted. And they're quite strong away from home in terms of their performance level. It quite suits their style of football as well. And with Grealish just coming back from injury, if they get a result tomorrow, then they're going to be going into that game with a lot of confidence. But I agree with you, it's Manchester United at home. It absolutely has to be a must-win, surely. I don't care what form Villa are in. We need to win that game, and I expect us to win that.
Good, because you were expecting a loss today, and at least we managed to pull out a point from somewhere. There has been a few rumours about links to Grealish. He fits that kind of young British mould, creative player. I've seen like nice glimpses of him, but I think we'd have to pay a lot for him, and I don't think he's on the level of somebody like Maddison or somebody who I'd really like to see. But maybe you've seen a bit more of him, Reese.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive Grealish fanboy, to be honest. I've enjoyed watching him since he was the age of 17. I think he's matured a lot. He's someone that absolutely needs to be playing at a high level than playing for Aston Villa. And I actually think United would be a really well-suited club for him in terms of personality. He's someone who, unlike James Maddison, he's a bit more of an individual. James Maddison is someone who fits into the collective a bit more, whereas Grealish is a bit more mercurial. He's someone who creates danger out of nothing, and he's someone who has a lot of personality in his game, someone who commands the ball, demands the ball, and dictates the tempo in of himself. And I think we're crying out for a character like that, especially if Pogba leaves in the summer. I honestly wouldn't mind going for someone like Grealish. I think Maddison's a good player as well, but I wouldn't necessarily say Maddison's definitely better than Grealish. I just think Maddison's in a better setup. He's at a club which is very advanced. He's got a coach who I think is a very gifted coach, Brendan Rodgers. And not to say Dean Smith hasn't been doing a good job, but I'm just saying there's levels, and Leicester are a much higher level. He's got better players around him. And for me, Grealish should absolutely be playing in the England squad as well. So he's someone I think's got a really bright future, and he's getting better and better.
I think one of the big things about Grealish, I am not totally sold on his footballing ability, but I am totally sold on his personality. For a few reasons. I think just the way he plays is a lot about personality and just putting himself in positions. It's like, not to do a disservice to Lampard, but he was never technically the best player in the world, but he had an extremely good personality and football mind that overcame a lot of other things. And I see that in Grealish. I see, the fact that he's captain Villa, at such a young age and through such a difficult time in their history, I think speaks volumes. I think the season he gave them in the Championship, when he probably could have gone to a lot of Premiership clubs, is admirable. And I like the way he wears his socks. And he's a bit of a dick, he's just got that stupid hair, clearly hits the sunbeds, loves himself a wee bit, but he's got that personality to kind of carry it off a wee bit, I think, actually, and I'm a big fan of his. My worry would be that it's too much at United, it would depend on the squad he's going into, and the manager and stuff like that. Because I think with a lot of players who could potentially come to United, there's a lot of, it's a very pressurised situation. And on the one hand, we then need players with that personality and that kind of inner confidence that they can just do it themselves anyway, which is what we desperately need. But if it doesn't go well, it can be a bit damaging. But I'd love to see him at United. But I think Villa are going to come and play. That's the only thing I think that's good for us. The slight problem maybe that they actually have a lot more quality than what we're used to in terms of Norwich, coming and playing but being useless. Brighton coming and playing but being useless. Villa will do that, but probably to a higher level and certainly more, damaging up front and at the back. So I expect us to win. I expect a kind of a bounce back performance just from the last few minutes of this game. I think that'll sting. And a lot of kind of positivity taken from the comeback that we did make. So I think it'll be like an open game, but I hope that we'll have enough kind of going forward, because the midfield could be a big issue again,
Yeah, we actually didn't talk that much about the positives from the game today, and the actual 3 goals we scored were all really great goals in different ways. But yeah, like you say, hopefully they can take some of that and go forward from there. I mean, yeah, apart from Grealish, we have also been linked as well to the, what's his name, the Scottish midfielder.
John McGinn.
Yeah, and in fact, few rumours that Ferguson would have been recommending him as well for the squad.
But Fergie would take anyone who's Scottish, do you know what I mean?
I think that might be as deep as those rumours go. But yeah, but he's actually done pretty well this season as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been instrumental in Scotland's qualifying campaign for the Euros.
Yeah, scored 2 goals.
He's another quality player. This is why I'm saying Villa have been the most sophisticated team, because their midfield has been really good to watch. And if you look at it, just take the midfield out from the rest of the team. If you look at Grealish as a potential England player, potential player who can play in the top 4, then you look at someone like McGinn, who, you could arguably say the same thing. And then in their defensive midfield position, they've got guys like Marvellous Nakambu and Hurahan, who I don't particularly rate, but Douglas Luiz, who was at Man City.
Yeah, Douglas Luiz.
They've got a good trio of players who actually play really good football, and the team is able to make those triangles, keep the ball well. And if Scott is still out, McTominay for next week, if we've still got an injury crisis there, they could potentially play us off the park next weekend, and it might not be an easy win if we do get the win. That's why I'm a bit slightly worried for next weekend. It depends on who we've got fit in midfield.
Yeah, I agree with that, because for me, the midfield is a big worry. I would assume that Matic will be back and ready to play. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not so sure, but I'm assuming he's going to be fit by next week if he's in training now. And he's definitely going to be a better option than what Andreas showed today, that's for sure. But yeah, for me, that midfield area is a worry.
I think it depends entirely on how we set up. I think if we're going to go there with a negative attitude in terms of our injury crisis, then we'll get the exact same thing we got today, which is poor performance. I think we have to go acknowledging that and trying to compensate, but also trying to open the game up and kind of...
it is a totally different game. This was against pretty high-flying Sheffield United away, whereas this is at home against Villa, who've been, putting in decent performances, but yeah, their points have not been that great for them. They're still around the relegation zone.
Yeah, and that's because they've been very open. I think they do have good players, but I don't think they don't want to sit in. They don't want to, particularly against the big teams. It seems they really want to come and play, and I think that's good for us. Really, to be honest, we actually need that at the moment.
Yeah, no. So look, that Villa match, we might come back after that one, and otherwise, definitely after Spurs. The only other thing to mention about that Spurs game is that it's actually going to be live on Amazon. Who are now going to have a load of our Premier League games. This is for our UK listeners. But in December, there's going to be a ton of matches shown on Amazon Prime this year, and that's the first one. United versus Tottenham on December the 4th. So, yeah, I don't know about you guys if you realise that there's going to be a whole new change in what's going on and, where that all fits into everything. For me, it's just another headache of trying to find where to watch the match because, I'm not an Amazon Prime subscriber myself, but maybe I'll have to be
now. It's as bad as the US Open coverage in the tennis. Then watch out, UK fans.
Yeah, for me, I just don't like where this all just gets spread more and more, and you have to have like 3 different services just to be able to watch your matches, and then you still can't even watch Saturday 3 o'clock games anyway. So even if you
Sell the rights to the individual clubs and let us watch it all.
that's the
on
crazy
UTV,
thing. You
please.
could end up paying for 3 different services, but you still can't watch some of Man United's matches. I mean, yeah, there's got to be something wrong there.
It's
And
ridiculous.
yeah, it can't go on much longer, this. And yeah, all this setup when I think a lot of these Sky and all complain about streaming and try and shut these things down. But yeah, it's no surprise really that nowadays people are just fed up of having to have all these different options and still can't watch all our matches. But yeah, anyway, get ready. Amazon Prime for Jose's return to Old Trafford. I guess they're pretty happy to have signed up that one as one of their first matches to showcase it.
Yeah, I'd say that'll do all right.
Yeah, I've got absolutely no idea who's in their kind of lineup of commentators and whatever, and it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I remember BT struggled massively when they first started and are slightly better nowadays, but I still do prefer Sky coverage even after all this time. Still do think they do the best from there, but yeah, we'll see. So yeah, get your Amazon subscription sorted, guys, for next month. Yeah. Look out for that. The only other match everybody should look out for is that, our young lads, the under-21s, have qualified for the next round of the EFL Cup. Won all their 3 group games against full-time teams. I think it was Rotherham, Lincoln, Doncaster. And just the day before that Tottenham match, they'll be playing Tranmere Rovers away in the next round. So yeah, it'll just be worth keeping an eye on them because that's the first time we've entered this competition. And yeah, been doing really well in there so far. And maybe it shows that people like Garner are ready to play. Colm, as you said, you wanted him to play, and yeah, in the end, he couldn't have done any worse than Andreas. So yeah, let's see where we're
I
at.
really don't think so. I think actually would have done a lot better. Would he have been physically a wee bit dominant or whatever? Maybe, but he's so good at finding space and just keeping things ticking over that honestly, I can't imagine how he would have done any worse.
Yeah, I guess he'll probably play this midweeker now at Astana, and then we'll see from there who plays next week from Villa. But yeah, that's all from us for now. As I say, a bit of a crazy game today, kind of encapsulates our whole season. 2-0 down, 3-2 up, and then end of 3-3. I guess, yeah, in the end, we're kind of happy with the points, seeing as we were 2-0 down at half-time. But Colm is now officially...
I'm not happy with the points. I am not happy with the points.
Yeah, well, as I say, I'm putting you down now as our first official Ole Out member, well, even though you've not fully said it, but yeah.
That's okay.
All right. Good night, all.
Cheerio.
Good night.